Today, I want to go through some of the past Battlefield games that I've played, skipping 1943, and highlighting a few things I enjoyed and a few I didn't. This isn't a full breakdown or retrospective, just a quicker look at what worked for me and what didn't across the series. Starting off with Bad Company 1. Something I really enjoyed from this game was the unlock system. Instead of a grinding towards an arbitrary level, you earned points and chose what to unlock. This allowed players to prioritize gear that actually matched their class and playstyle, rather than just chasing levels. The Bad Company series also had a level of irreverence that the series hasn't really returned to. The tone, the dialogue, the personality that it gave was distinct when compared to the other serious mainline entries. What I thought was lacking was the severely limited weapon customization, especially when compared to other competitors during that time, like Call of Duty. On the other side of things, there was only the hardcore style game mode at launch. We're talking about friendly fire being on, which was a severe pain early on in the game, with people intentionally team killing because they wanted a vehicle that their teammate had. With Bad Company 2, they really built upon the foundation that they laid with Bad Company 1, especially when it came to weapon customization and destruction. The game became more aligned with its competitors, allowing players to choose a different sight for their gun compared to where Bad Company 1 was. But the biggest improvement here, I think, came with the destruction. With Bad Company 1, destruction was mostly static, meaning that certain parts of structures were designed to break regardless of where the damage landed on that structure. Bad Company 2 introduced a more dynamic system, where damage happened exactly where it was applied. Entire buildings could also be leveled, terrain could be reshaped, and this directly affected how matches played out. The downside of this, though, was that it showed up over time. As matches dragged on, everything flattened out, and map flow oftentimes broke down. As structures disappeared, pacing slowed, and engagements became less defined. When it came to Battlefield 3, I feel like they tightened up gunplay and expanded weapon customization here a bit more. On console especially, where I played, the maps felt structured and deliberate, with clear lanes and consistent pacing. Granted, when it came to the destruction, they added some new features, but they drastically limited what could be destroyed overall. It made maps continue to have and maintain a certain amount of pacing, round to round, and throughout the match. However, it was severely limiting and it didn't feel as Battlefield-esque as something like Bad Company 2. With that being said, I don't think that was the biggest weakness from Battlefield 3. That came down to the suppression mechanic. They added bloom and forced inaccuracy that created just tons of randomness which players couldn't directly counter. This reduced skill expression and made a lot of fights feel less earned. Then going into Battlefield 4, I think it had one of the best sandboxes in the series. We had a lot of weapon variety, vehicle depth, and overall complexity that created a real skill gap across both infantry and vehicle play. But early on, unstable netcode significantly hurt the experience. Even later, some vehicle-heavy maps just felt too open, which made infantry to vehicle balance inconsistent depending on the situation and the map. Then DICE pivoted away from modern shooting and gave us Battlefield 1. And I think the biggest strengths that it had was its presentation. The atmosphere, sound design, and overall immersion were some of the best in the franchise, absolutely. Map flow was also strong here, with a generally good balance between infantry and vehicle gameplay. Where it struggled was gunplay depth. The mechanics leaned into randomness at times, which lowered skill ceiling compared to earlier titles and made some fights feel less controlled. But overall, I thought the game was fantastic. I think the biggest issues for it was that it was World War I and not a lot of people know or care that much about playing a game like that. And then came Battlefield 5, which I think did some really good things mechanically. We're talking about removing the suppression-based inaccuracy, which helped restore fairness to engagements. The time to kill and weapon handling also supported a solid skill ceiling overall. And I found that the biggest issues here came down to visibility and readability. Players blended in too well with the environments, which hurt clarity and made fights feel frustrating rather than fun or competitive. Then came Battlefield 2042. It had some strengths that I don't think get talked about too much, the audio in particular. It was generally easy to localize footsteps, distance, and elevation. This helped situational awareness as a whole, but overall it struggled with identity. The move to 128 players hurt pacing and map structure, and the launch was weighted down by technical issues, especially with input-related problems that lingered longer than they should have. And even once some of these fundamental problems were addressed, it still ended up being the least played Battlefield game for me in the entire franchise. So I think what stands out here is that Battlefield tends to be at its best when pacing is controlled, skill expression is consistent, and the game has a strong sense of identity, and it struggles most when scale, randomness, or experimentation begin to undermine these aspects. And also, to be clear, I was looking at gameplay here, not the political or inclusivity discussions around games like Battlefield 1 or Battlefield 5. Those weren't my focus, because those things sit outside of the gameplay and are a separate conversation entirely. But I'm curious, what Battlefield has been your favorite to play, and what's one feature from it that you would like to see return? Be sure to let me know down in the comments below. I'll catch you on the next one. RAMTEID out.
It's gonna get real ugly.